Have you ever wanted to see a proto-xenomorph done as a rubber-suited nightmare? This is it. It, The Terror from Beyond Space is a 1958 sci-fi horror film directed by Edward L Cahn and starring Marshall Thompson alongside Shawn Smith, following a rescue ship that unknowingly brings a Martian killer aboard. Shot fast on recycled sets and later cited by fans as a blueprint for Alien, it turns a tiny budget into pure claustrophobic terror. In this breakdown, we're going to peel back the legend and study the monster itself in brutal, obsessive detail. But before we dive into the story, we've got a small favor to ask. If you love psychological horror as much as we do, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a quick click for you, but it means the world to us. Thanks for your support. Now let's begin. The plot explained. It's 1973, and Mars has already earned its reputation as a graveyard. The first mission, Challenge 141, crash lands on the red planet and goes silent. So Earth sends a second ship, Challenge 142, commanded by Colonel Van Heusen, to find out what happened and bring back any survivors. On the surface, they find one man, Colonel Edward Carruthers, commander of 141, sitting in the wreckage surrounded by his dead crew. Back home, everyone assumes he snapped, killed his people, and lived off their supplies until rescue arrived. Van Heusen believes that almost instantly. Carruthers insists he's innocent. He says something from the Martian wasteland stalked his crew one by one and would have killed him too if the crash in the rescue ship hadn't interrupted it. Once he's aboard Challenger 142, we meet the people now stuck with him. Ann Anderson, smart and observant. Dr. Mary Royce, the ship's doctor. Backed by her husband Eric, Lieutenant James Calder, in charge of engineering. Major John Perdue. Brothers Bob and Gino Finelli. And crewman Joe Keenholz, the guy who goes where no one else wants to. They lift off from Mars and head for Earth. While they were on the surface, an emergency hatch was left open. Out in the thin Martian air, something big and reptilian crawled up the hull and slipped into the lower decks before launch. By the time Challenge 142 is in space, the crew thinks their only issue is Carruthers. The real threat is already below them. It starts with noises, scraping, heavy thumps, odd sounds from the cargo levels you can blame on the ship settling if you want to sleep. Van Heusen focuses on tearing into Carruthers' story. Anne quietly notices that Carruthers sounds less like a liar and more like someone reliving trauma. Then Van Heusen sends Joe Keenholz down to check the source of the noise. Joe doesn't come back. No radio, no shout. The crew finally takes it seriously and sweeps the ship. They find him jammed in an air duct, hidden like trash. His body dried out and shriveled. In the infirmary, Dr. Royce performs an autopsy and finds the details that changes everything. Joe hasn't been torn up or burned. He's been drained. Every usable fluid is gone, like something fed on him. Suddenly, the idea of a creature that drinks its victims no longer sounds like a crazy excuse. Soon after, the sounds return. Gino Finelli goes to investigate and becomes the next victim on the menu. The others find him barely alive in the shadows. As they try to pull him out, the thing responsible finally steps into view. Now we meet it. A huge reptilian humanoid fills the corridor. Thick hide, heavy claws, moving with slow, brutal confidence. The crew does the obvious thing. They open fire. Bullets punch into its body, achieving almost nothing. It just keeps coming. They slam the hatch and retreat, leaving Gino behind. For Bob Finelli, losing his brother turns this from a routine mission into something personal and hateful. Everyone now accepts that Carruthers was telling the truth. There really is a Martian predator on board, and Challenge 142 is its new hunting ground. The crew arm themselves with pistols, grenades, and whatever they can improvise. They try gas, explosives, even electricity, but almost nothing works. Calder has a standout moment holding it back with a blowtorch, while others slam doors, but they're only buying seconds. They also discover that its wounds are not normal. Anyone who is injured develops infections that standard medicine cannot touch. Perdue goes down after a slash, and later Van Heusen is wounded too. His leg becomes a second enemy, rotting his body and his judgment until the hard-nosed commander turns unstable and paranoid. With the people dying and the lower decks turning into feeding zones, the survivors retreat upward, sealing levels behind them. The creature simply tears through metal hatches. Every time it breaks into a higher deck, the ship feels smaller and the tension climbs. In one desperate move, they lure it into the reactor room and expose it to radiation from the ship's nuclear pile. It's the big sci-fi kill shot, the plan that should end the nightmare. It fails. The monster survives, smashes its way out, and leaves more bodies behind. Bob Finelli dies in the chaos, going down trying to help others. Eventually, the survivors are pushed all the way to the control deck. Van Heusen is feverish and barely functional. Perdue is half gone. Carruthers, Anne, the Royces, and a couple of others are exhausted and nearly out of options. Carruthers notices one last horrifying detail in the readouts. The oxygen levels are dropping much faster than they should. With so few people left alive, the numbers only work if you add one more set of lungs. The creatures. On Mars, those oversized lungs were an advantage. On a pressurized ship, they're burning through the air supply, so they gamble everything on one last plan. Everyone who can still move gets into a spacesuit on the control deck, while the creature pounds on the final hatch. Once the suits are sealed, the outer airlock opens. Air explodes out of the deck in a violent rush. Loose equipment tears toward open space. The creature forces the hatch at precisely the wrong moment, and it gets wedged halfway. Those massive lungs that kept it alive on Mars now betray it. In the vacuum, it can't breathe, can't push itself free, and slowly suffocates, frozen in the doorway like a dead gargoyle clinging to the ship. Carruthers is cleared in the harshest way possible. The real monster dies at the edge of space, and the story leaves you with a clean warning for space horror fans. Out there, one open hatch and one unseen passenger are all it takes to turn a rescue mission into a flying slaughterhouse. Entire breakdown of the creature. Now we're gonna break this thing down like a full-on horror autopsy. We'll dig into its anatomy and those freakish lungs, how it feeds, and why its scratches are basically a curse. We'll get into its hunting style, its weird intelligence, what truly hurts it, and finally, how this one creature quietly rewired sci-fi horror for decades. Number 1. Species and anatomy. So what kind of thing are we dealing with here? This is a straight-up Martian nightmare. In the film, the crew speculates that it's a native life form from Mars, maybe the last survivor of a wiped-out civilization that devolved into pure savagery as the planet died. That's never confirmed, but its humanoid build and lone predator status back the idea. Whatever its exact origin, what we see now is the end result. A single apex hunter that outlived everything else by becoming brutally efficient. Physically, the creature is a bulky humanoid with clear reptilian traits. Thick, scaled hide, heavy padded shoulders, and clawed three-fingered hands. It moves like a living battering ram. Its frame is built for raw strength and endurance, shrugging off punishment that would pulp a human. Inside, it has oversized lungs, evolved from Mars' thin atmosphere. On a pressurized ship, that means it can inhale huge volumes of oxygen, which is exactly why the crew's air supply starts dropping at an alarming rate. Its body is so tough that small arms fire, grenades, gas, electric shocks, and even exposure to the ship's nuclear reactor fail to bring it down. Number 2. Habits and behavior. This creature does not tear chunks off of people, it empties them. Its feeding method involves stripping victims of every useful fluid, blood, water, even marrow, through an absorption-like process. The bodies it leaves behind are dried, shrunken, and corpse-white, with no obvious bite marks. That eerie, desiccated look is what allows Dr. Mary Royce to deduce that something is literally draining the crew, rather than just mauling them. You know what's worse? Surviving its claws is not a win. Wounds from the creature quickly turn septic in a way human drugs can't handle. Those injuries come loaded with Martian microbes, turning each slash into a slow, ugly death sentence. The film shows wounded crew members spiraling into untreatable infection, which adds a nasty biological horror layer on top of the physical threat. But this is not a big dumb monster. It studies its surroundings, learns the ship's layout, and uses that knowledge to its advantage. It moves through vents and maintenance spaces, hides bodies where they won't be discovered right away, and changes routes when humans block certain paths. It hunts with purpose, not random thrashing. More like a seasoned predator working familiar ground than a confused animal. The creature lives for close quarters kills. It favors tight spaces, ducts, ladders, narrow corridors, where its reach and toughness dominate. It stalks, waits, and hits when a crew member is alone, then drags the body out of sight so the others stay confused and scared. Its main drive is to secure fresh prey to strip for fluids. When cornered or attacked, it doesn't retreat. It pushes forward, smashing through whatever's in its way. Number 3. Powers and weaknesses. Against human technology, this thing is basically a walking nope screen. Firearms barely slow it. Grenades and gas attacks fail to do permanent damage. Attempts to electrocute it or kill it with radiation from the reactor also fall flat. It rips through metal doors and bulkheads the crew relies on for protection, turning their defenses into temporary speed bumps. We never see it visibly flinch or change its behavior when it's hurt. There's no on-screen sign of pain. It just keeps moving, making it feel less like an animal and more like an unstoppable force. For all its power, the creature is still chained to biology. Its biggest asset, that is, those massive lungs, turn out to be the only way to kill it. They're perfect for pulling oxygen from thin Martian air, but in a hard vacuum, they become its downfall. When the crew decompresses the top deck and vents the airlock, the creature is caught in the hatch, exposed directly to space. Cut off from breathable atmosphere, it cannot adapt, suffocates, and dies. In terms of what the film shows, oxygen dependency is the only confirmed weakness. From the crew's perspective, this thing is pure dread made flesh. It never tries to communicate, never makes deals, never explains what it wants. It just stalks corridors, drags people away, and drains them. The combination of silent hunting, hidden bodies, and infections that bloom after each close call turns the ship into a claustrophobic death trap. Every injury feels like a ticking clock. The creature's whole package, that is, stowaway alien, vent-crawling ambusher, desiccated victims, airlock death, reads like a rough prototype for the xenomorph years before Alien existed. But in this movie, we learn what it is through what it does, how it kills, how it survives, how it shrugs off everything the humans throw at it. It's not a philosopher, not a conqueror, and not a cosmic mastermind. It's a brutal survivor from a dead world, and that stripped-down, evolutionary horror is exactly what makes it stick in the history of creature horror. Marvelous verdict. It, The Terror from Beyond Space, is one of those movies I genuinely love talking about because it feels secretly ours. Back in 1958, it landed as a modest little space thriller. Nothing world-shattering, just efficient pulp on a double bill. But over the years, it has quietly grown in stature, especially among horror and sci-fi fans who spot all the alien DNA hiding in plain sight. Yes, you can see the rubber suit, but the tension, the bleakness, and that suffocating ship atmosphere still hit. It's an underrated, rough-edged gem that absolutely deserves more respect. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone!